Thanks for joining me on Tropical Weather Impact. It's Tuesday, August 26th. Meteorologist Peyton Malone here reporting in New Orleans as the tropics go silent for the last week of August and maybe even for the very beginning of September. The notorious week for bad storms in Louisiana, and we are tracking this right here. Blue sky and low humidity. So all that to say, there's no big problems in the tropics here for the next 7 days, maybe even beyond 7 days for the northern Gulf Coast. Here's where we stand, though, a broad view of the tropics. We still have Tropical Storm Fernand. It's getting close to completely dissipating. I'll show you a satellite image of it in just a moment. We've got a tropical wave moving through the Caribbean. It does have some showers and storms. Nothing substantial currently expected with that either. And this long, thin line of showers and storms, that's an old frontal boundary. That's a new frontal boundary. And so that's really probably going to be about the only thing to watch here in the tropics over the next week or so. We'll be closer to the U.S. here, this old front, to make sure it doesn't try to get any little areas of spin along it. But I think that's the extent of what's going on out in the tropics. Things are going to remain somewhat suppressed in the Atlantic, meaning the atmosphere is not going to be hospitable to tropical systems. We've got wind shear, we've got dry air, and I think all that's going to keep things relatively quiet over the next 7 days, especially deep out in the tropics. I mean, we don't even have significant waves rolling off the continent of Africa, hardly any clouds. Closer look at Fernand here as, again, it's starting to really have problems. That's called a naked storm because there are no shower and thunderstorms around the center. All that has been blown away and displaced here. And so this is in the process of not becoming tropical anymore. It will eventually dissipate as well. The center outruns where all the showers and storms were. A pretty cool satellite image, though. It's currently sitting over 630 miles away from Bermuda. That's the closest land to it as it continues to lift north here at about 14 miles per hour. And so that will continue to dissipate, and Fernand will be no longer here probably by later tonight or tomorrow on Wednesday. I think the National Hurricane Center will stop issuing advisories on that. So as things go quiet, I just want to remind you that even though this is the last week of August, the week we all dread here in Louisiana, we still have the majority of hurricane season left ahead of us. We are still thinking that there are some ingredients there for somewhat of a near average to slightly above average season. The second week of September is the busiest. It's the peak of hurricane season. That's whenever you look at all the past years, that's when we have most of our activity. September remains active into October. Notice this sharp decline, though, into late October. So our rule of thumb here in Louisiana is typically after the middle part of October, we're doing okay. Now, we have had a major hurricane. Hurricane Zeta in 2020 moved through on the last couple of days of October. It was that Halloween storm. It was a Cat 3. And so that's a very rare instance, but it's just a reminder that hurricane season doesn't really care about these dates. Things can remain active well after your seasonal peak. So that's where we are right now. We're enjoying it being quiet, but September is the busiest month. And I'm sure things will eventually pick back up by the middle of September, but I think the first week's relatively okay. What have we seen so far with this hurricane season? Well, interestingly enough, we've only had one hurricane, and that one hurricane was a Category 5, an impressive Category 5 at that strengthened extremely quickly. The others have all been tropical storms, starting out with Andrea, Barry, and Chantal. Earlier in June and July, we went quiet for a big part of July, had little Dexter here, and then Aaron fired up. That was a massive storm for a while. It's long gone, and now Fernand is about to be gone. Next name on the list is Gabrielle, and again, I don't see that forming anytime soon here near in the Gulf Coast. The only spot we'll be watching is that old frontal boundary off the eastern seaboard and the northern Gulf over the next 7 days or so, but that's about it. We were talking about the last week of August. It is a notorious week for bad storms in Louisiana and Mississippi. We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina devastating parts of southeast Louisiana and the Mississippi Gulf Coast. But we've had some other bad storms. Ida, August 29th as well. That was back in 2021. Isaac was only a Cat 1. Remember how big Isaac was and how slow moving it was. This thing crawled for days. It made landfall on the 28th, was still crawling through the region on the 29th. That led to massive surge problems over into parts of the river parishes. You remember areas around LaPlace saw all that massive flooding just because you had that persistent wind in the lake there. That was back in 2012. Gustav, 2008, made landfall as a Cat 2. Now, Gustav was a giant hurricane as well. In fact, it led to some fairly incredible surge values of 10 to 15 feet out here in eastern St. Bernard, up towards Michoud reported like 12 to 13 feet of storm surge. And it was that first storm that was a big test for the city of New Orleans and surrounding areas after Katrina. Remember the evacuations for Gustav as well. Of course, it was not nearly as bad as Katrina. So that was in 08. Then also over in western Louisiana, Laura, that was back in 2020. These all happened within that last week of August. And Gustav made landfall technically on September the 1st. But this little 7-day period, notoriously uncomfortable with bad hurricanes. And a couple others, you might remember Andrew. In fact, Andrew's anniversary of making landfall in Louisiana is today, August 26th. It did it in the early morning hours, but it was a Category 3 just to the west-southwest of Morgan City was its official landfall. But it produced a bad hurricane or a bad tornado over in the Laplace area and over in the river parishes there that day. So that was one of the most memorable things from Andrew here was a couple bad tornadoes in the region. But again, just a notoriously bad week. And these are only storms that are in the last week of August and right at the beginning of September. We've had many rough storms in September as well. Rita, all these others. We've had many in mid-August. Camille, I mean, there's so many different storms, but these are the ones that are specifically notable for that last week of August. And just happy to report we don't have anything like this on our doorstep right now. In fact, it's been lovely. In the next few days, we're talking low humidity, not a lot of rain. Now, Friday, Saturday, we'll get some rain back in here as we inch into your Labor Day weekend. But any Labor Day weekend plans, I don't think are going to be disrupted by anything bad in the tropics. Again, the only spot we'll be watching is I think eastern seaboard, although models are not very aggressive with anything forming here over the next few days. Just keeping an eye on this old frontal boundary. Sometimes you can get areas of disturbed weather. They turn into low pressure. You get some spin, and occasionally you get these homegrown systems that can form into named storms, but models haven't been too terribly excited with anything forming from that. But we'll keep an eye on it, especially off the eastern seaboard and maybe just south of us. But again, that threat seems fairly marginal at this point. That's going to do it for your tropical weather impact on this August 26th. You would think on August 26th we'll be tracking some big problems, but we have no big problems to worry about. Just smooth sailing here for the next few days. We'll see you right back here tomorrow, same place, same time.